Welcome to the UK Run Chat podcast. I'm Michelle, and today I'm joined by Fiona Horsfield. Now, Fiona is fresh from finishing second at the Montane Winter Spine Race, which, for those of you who have yet had your eyes closed for the last month, is a non-stop 268-mile race along the iconic Pennine Way. It's widely regarded as Britain's most brutal endurance race. I'll be interested to get Fiona's take on that. Now, she's a highly accomplished ultra runner. She won the Northern Traverse in 2025. She's previously won the MRT Spine Challenger North. But she hasn't been running that long, from what I understand, in terms of distance running. But she also brings a really unique perspective to extreme endurance, because alongside her running, she works as a GP. She's a mountain rescue team volunteer, and she's previously worked on the Spine Race as a global expedition medic as well. So looking forward to hearing all about that. Thank you, Fiona, so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I'm hoping you can give us a bit of a broader introduction to yourself, if that's okay, for people who don't know you yet. How would you describe yourself beyond this amazing race result?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think first and foremost, running is is my hobby, I would say, and it just fits in and around whatever else is going on. I have two children, a mum of two, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. So both in primary, and I work as a part-time GP in Fife in Scotland. And yeah, as you said, I sort of volunteer with the local mountain rescue team as well. So that just kind of fits in and around everything else. But yeah, the running is it's a hobby that's it's a hobby that's taken up more and more time. But it is primarily just that. Yeah, it's a hobby.
I guess that happens when you start to do the really long endurance races. Like, how do you fit it all in practically with all like work and mum life must be really busy, and then alongside that volunteering, where does the training kind of fit in for that, for a long race like the Spine?
So it has been building up. So the last few years, I've definitely my training has become more structured, and so Meryl Cooper's been coaching me through that. And it is a juggle. It is just trying to fit it all in, and it's just trying to make it work without taking too much time away from family life or things like that. But it's doable. But I have to prioritize it to make it fit, and I have to miss things as well, unfortunately, to make some of these longer runs fit in. But a lot of the stuff I'll do first thing in the morning. I find that it's not necessarily crazy early, but just often I find if I get up and do some form of exercise first thing, that is when it happens. And I think if I leave it to the evening, it just goes by the wayside. Too many other things crop up. I would probably try and do, because I work part time, sorry, I would maybe try and do a long run when the kids are at school one day of the week. Otherwise, I would just try and fit it in sort of the weekends, depending on what else is going on. But it's a squeeze.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So how did you first get into like the extreme endurance running then? Was it kind of a slow burn, or was it
Yeah.
suddenly just happen?
Yeah, I think it was a slow burner. I think, I mean, I've always run. So running has been my kind of go-to just for fitness. And I've never been what I would call competitive, although I think I'm competitive in nature, but I didn't really do school sports or, in any sort of competitive way. But as a family, we were always very outdoorsy. So we did lots of hiking and camping and canoeing, just lots and lots of skiing, things outdoors. And I think that's probably what drives what I do, is that I just love being outdoors and just having a bit of fun and having a bit of an adventure. And I think that's kind of my running fits that. So I can try and, any long runs I do, I kind of do them in interesting places or even just in the hills near where I live. But I get a day out, or I get a kind of even a few hours of a bit of a mini adventure for me, which is brilliant, and you can fit it in around whatever's going on. So I think the distance has just crept up, and it's been probably more about me just looking for the next adventure or looking for the next thing for me to, why don't I try that? Why don't I see if that, is that something I like? Usually it's something that's going to scare me. And then I just go with it.
Yeah,
And
that's an interesting attitude. Actually, something that scares you, because a lot of us are very fearful of like the Spine. To me, just seems like, wow, that's huge. So you'd obviously done kind of things like that before, but had you done anything of that distance before?
No, not at all. And I was genuinely terrified going into it. I had done, so the distances had crept up. And I think so I did the Spine Challenger North. I competed in the MRT race two or three summers ago, I think. And I was terrified going into that. I thought, I can't. How do you even do that distance? That's 160 miles, but I did it, and I loved it, and I did really well in it. And I was really surprised. So then I kind of, from there, I was like, okay, well, I've done that distance. What's the next thing I can do? And so then I entered the Northern Traverse. And again, my training, I think, probably reflected my fear factor. So I think the more scared I am, the more I realize I actually really have to put the work in to make sure that I don't fall apart. So that, yeah, and that was a great race for me as well. And then I was like, well, I have to do the Spine. That is clearly the next big one in British calendar. I need to get on that start list. And also, I think the year before I raced it, there was only 9 female finishers, and I thought, I need to be involved in this. So, yeah, I was lucky enough to get a place for the 2026 race. And yeah, I mean, fear fear drove my training, I think.
So why the Winter Spine Race then?
I think because I'd done the Challenger North in summer, and it just felt like I needed to see, yeah, like their strapline, isn't it, the UK's most brutal race. I needed to see what was so brutal about it, and was it stuff that I could take on, and how would I manage those challenges, and that was quite exciting for me.
Yeah. So when did you make the decision? When did you hear that you were in the Spine?
So the entries open pretty much a year in advance. So
Yeah.
I'd volunteered, yeah. So I was working as a medic at the 2025 Winter Spine Race. And then, and I suppose partly that was I just wanted to see what it was like on the other side, and meet some of the runners and watch them and see what was their experience like. And did I want to do it? I wasn't sure at that point if I wanted to do it. And then entries, I think, opened a week or two later. So I thought, yeah, I think that looked miserable. I think I need to have a shot.
So that whole experience didn't dissuade you then?
No, it didn't.
What sorts of things were you dealing with the previous year as a medic? What sort of complaints
They
were you
were they were
dealing with?
so where I was posted was quite early, relatively early on in a race, and it was, to be honest, a lot of it was just cold and tired at that point. Feet, people were getting yeah, sore lower legs. There was a lot of snow, so there was quite a few people dropping out with sore knees, sore ankles, shin splints, this kind of thing. But at that stage in the race, it was just strap people up, or help them if they were going to continue, or unfortunately quite a few people were dropping out at that point, so it was just facilitating that. But I mean, to be fair, most of what I did was probably make people cups of tea and coffee rather than anything medical.
That's a very important job, though, as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So you were talking about training then, and being kind of training by a fear almost, because you've entered this huge race. What does training look like, kind of practically, in terms of hours per week and
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually don't know. I don't know in total numbers. It definitely ramped up. So probably from about October, although I would do stuff all year, I didn't really ever stop. But it definitely built up from probably about the October last year, with the race being this January. And I would run probably 5 days a week usually, and then certainly the sort of the later part of the year was probably up to 6 days. And I would do 1 or 2 sort of longer runs during the week, and then again the time on feet sort of just picked up towards the end of the year. Usually 2 back-to-back longer runs, and they could be, I mean, anything sort of 5 to 8, 10 hours, something like that, when I was out. and with the pack as well, in the kind of the later months as well, just carrying the weight on my shoulders, because that's quite a big part of it. You ended up carrying a bag which could have been about 6 or 7 kilograms at the maximum. I'm not sure. I never did actually weigh it when it was fully packed, but it was maybe somewhere between about 5 and 7 for most of the part, I think. And then I would do some hill repeats during the week, and some just nicer kind of recovery runs. I did strength training, so I tried to do 2 sessions a week. Sometimes it was 3, and that would be a combination of going to a gym where I would be lifting things I never thought possible, or doing a kind of strength, mobility and conditioning class online, which I really enjoy. So a bit of a mixture of things, just to try and keep everything together and not falling apart in the long distance.
Oh, it's important, isn't it? Especially, you've mentioned the strength training there. Now, I know you've got Meryl's your coach. We had Meryl Cooper on a couple of episodes ago, very talented ultra runner as well.
Yeah.
Do you have somebody who coaches you at the gym as well? Do you have a PT to help with that, or is that something you're comfortable doing yourself?
No, I have no idea what to do myself. So I had been going to Emma Armstrong in Kelty, but she's unfortunately her gym has just moved. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to continue with her, but she's been amazing. And she's just, so she just kind of kept me on the right track and got me doing things that I sort of would look at her doing and think, well, there's no way I can, my body doesn't do that. But it was good. It was really, really good. And I used Jill Stephen, Ascent Fitness. She does an online strength and conditioning class, which is brilliant. And she's a very accomplished hill runner. So she knows what she's talking about as well.
Yeah, no, it helps to have a team of experts behind you, really, doesn't it? Like a bit of knowledge, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the heavy pack there. What sorts of things are you carrying? I mean, you're obviously also very comfortable being safe in the mountains with your volunteering role, and you're a mountain leader as well, aren't you?
Yeah. So I think that definitely feeds into it. And I think, I think perhaps that's one of the reasons I did actually do quite well this year, was because I am quite comfortable in the sort of, I am comfortable in weather. It doesn't scare me. I have a healthy fear from it, but it doesn't, I know, to a point, how to look after myself. I'm not, I would probably err on the side of carrying slightly too much kit, rather than too little. And I know that some runners unfortunately did have to retire due to hypothermia during this year's race. So it was something that was happening. It was, some really horrendous conditions. But I do feel comfortable in that. That wasn't something I was worried about. And actually was quite looking forward to. It was, just being out in that and just kind of testing myself in all conditions. But in my pack, so you have a basic kit list that you have to carry, and there's 30 or so items on it. So you have to have things like a really good sleeping bag, a bivy bag, a thermarest or an inflatable mat, so that you could, if needed to, you could bivy out. Although I never touched any of that stuff. And then jackets, gloves, hats, buff, all these kind of things. And I just made sure I had plenty of gloves, and torches, chargers, and it just racked up, and enough food as well. The weight, even though I tried to get the lightest weight stuff, the weight did rack up.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I guess training with that does help as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
getting used to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, practically when it's at its coldest out there on top of the moors, like, what are you wearing? How many layers are you in?
So I think the stretch over Crossfell was probably the coldest, and I think it was I think they said it was like -10 wind chill, and it was full on blizzards. I mean, you see some people have posted videos and things of it. I tried to get a photo actually at one point. I tried to do a selfie, but I just actually couldn't bring myself to take my glove off, and I couldn't do it. So I don't have that photo evidence. But I probably had thick winter tights, so kind of fleecy running tights, and then waterproofs over the top, which I think I kept on for most of it. I had thick socks. I had merino liners and thick waterproof socks on my feet, and my feet were fine. My top, I'd have a merino base layer, like a fleecy layer. And then I think I probably had at that point 2 sort of Primaloft jackets, one thinner, one thicker, and then a waterproof shell.
Wow.
And then buff and gloves and goggles and the rest of it. So yeah, a few layers.
Yeah. Because I guess a lot of it, I know a lot go into run it, but I guess a lot of it you're just moving quickly, aren't you?
Yeah,
You're not
yeah.
like, how much of it are you practically running?
So I think in the first 12 hours, it does feel like you're actually running some sections of it. It was pretty icy on a lot of the slabs, so there was a lot of yes, it was quite tricky to actually move quite quickly on the bits that should have been more runnable, because there was a lot of just underfoot ice and black ice, and it would catch you. But certainly it felt like some of the movement was more like running in the first 12 hours. And then after that, I mean, it would just been comedy to watch. You sort of feel like you're running, but actually all you're doing is shuffling, really, or hiking. So, and I did probably work out that actually a lot of the time my kind of hiking or fast walking was probably as fast as a shuffle. So it was just trying to move as best you can, really. But I did feel like, so usually I felt just before I was really tired and needed a sleep that I would completely slow down, and it was so noticeable. And then I'd have a sleep, and it could even just be a really short one. And then all of a sudden I felt like my body could work again. And it was incredible just what that reset would do. And it did, even if it wasn't a proper run, it did, it made me feel that my body was working again. So I think I was able to run in absolute inverted commas all the way up to the end, just with kind of these little resets, although it definitely got slower.
Yeah, that's amazing. How do you train yourself for that, like a sleep? Because it was 112 hours, wasn't it? Which is like
Yeah,
about
yeah.
just under 5. Is that just under 5?
Yeah, so I started Sunday morning and I finished Thursday night, sort of after midnight at some point. I don't know how you train for that. I'm not sure. I definitely haven't solved the problem or figured out what the best strategy is. I just kind of went with what felt that I needed to do at the time. And it was, I'd obviously listened to lots of podcasts and things and heard other people's um, opinions of what they've done in races and things, and just sort of read around as much as possible. But I think you just have to go with how it feels and go with your own body. And people were doing all different things throughout the course. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong. But it is a jigsaw, putting all these things together and just trying to work out all the different pieces. There's so many things can go wrong, but so many things can go right. And it's just, I suppose, trying to stack things in your favor. And sleep is definitely one of those parts.
Yeah, absolutely. As is fueling, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll come on to that later. I was wondering, would you be able to kind of talk us through your race? Would that be okay? So put yourself back on that start line in Edale. What's going through your mind
And I
this
was so
morning?
scared. I was so scared, so excited at the same time. I mean, it had been such a long time coming. I put so much effort into the planning stage, and I think like I was really invested in it, not just to do as well as I could, and whatever that looked like. I had no designs to. I had no dreams of, well, maybe I had a dream of going on a podium, but I had no idea that that was going to be possible. So, but even just getting there was a lot of hard work and just planning and kit and training and all the rest of it. And my whole family came down, so my husband and kids were there. So it was a bit emotional as well. My daughter, who's 10, and she was in floods of tears because I was going away for X amount of time and heading off into the darkness. So it was it was slightly stressful. And I had such a sort of an adrenaline surge. I just remember at the start, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I could actually burst into tears. I just needed to get going. That's really unusual for me. I'm normally just quite excited. But but once I got going, it was fine. And I knew that was the case. And I was like, just all I need to do now is I just need to get to the end. And it's just, and that's where, you definitely relax a lot more once you get started.
Yeah. So talk us through that first day then, because it's an instant climb out of Edale, isn't it? Really, they're straight into the climb.
Yeah, it was quite and it was really snowy. So that first section, it was windy as well. So you kind of came up that climb, And gale force winds. Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty windy. I got blown off my feet a couple of times up at the top, and people were slipping and sliding. But it was good fun. Like, I really enjoyed that bit. It was great to get going, and it was like, yes, there's weather, and this is good. This is what the winter spine should be. And then, so that first section to Hebden Bridge, yeah, I mean, I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember, but it does sort of blur into kind of one. Lots of ice, lots of falls, and I know quite a few people had to drop out in that first section just because of falls, I think, and sort of injuries that they've picked up. But we had to carry spikes for our shoes as well, which was really helpful, just to stop you slipping. So that was a good piece of essential kit that you had to carry. But it was quite a good section, and I think you moved quite well the first day, just because you're fresh and there's a bit of excitement, and there's people around you as well, and that was quite nice because you could get conversations going, and there was a few of us who kind of ran around each other, and that was really nice, just keeping the kind of morale going. So enjoyed that first section. And then you got to Hebden Bridge, and I think it must have been evening time at some point, and that was the first checkpoint, which was so busy. That was quite tricky for me, actually, because I didn't really know how to. You had to sit upstairs, but you had to only get food downstairs. So all my kind of designs of how to manage my kit and do all my kind of things efficiently went out the window, because you couldn't do two things at once, really. So I think, but it was fine. It was fine. It was just very busy. They had to manage a lot of people, and then you're back out into the night for the next long section after that. So Hebden Bridge was the first checkpoint. The next main checkpoint was a Hawes, but that was a big section, like 60 odd miles, and they have a monitoring checkpoint halfway through, but you don't see your drop bag at that one. So it was a huge section where you're carrying a lot of food for that, and that was a really heavy pack. So that was certainly. That was tougher, I think, in terms of just the duration. And so I remember somebody had said, and I can't remember who it was, but they said that the race doesn't actually start until you get to Hawes. So I had this in my mind. I was like, right, I just need to get these miles behind me. And literally the first 2 days, I felt like I was just getting the miles behind me. I was enjoying it, lots of parts of it were really, really enjoyable. And I ran with some really lovely people, which was really helpful as well, just having conversations and it make it fun. But it did feel like I just needed to get a lot of these miles under the belt, to then. I hadn't even thought about racing at that point. It was just need to get somewhere up this path and then see where we're at. But there were some really, really lovely parts of that, up around Malham was really beautiful. And then that section after Malham Tarn is a really interesting section. So you've got, unfortunately, we had to divert round Pennygent, but we went up Fountains Fell, and I was with Sophie Grant for the whole section from Malham Tarn to Hawes, which was great fun. We just literally chatted the whole way. I think I know everything about her and she knows everything about me. But that was just such good company and just really, good to have that. But yeah, the weather was sort of coming and going a bit. We had some really nice spells when it was actually really mild, and really uncharacteristically mild. I think it even got up to sort of 8 or 9 degrees at one point. But then up around sort of Pennygent and that up onto Hawes from there, it was absolutely pouring with rain, absolutely soaking, proper, just winter rain started in, and that was pretty much us into Hawes, and that felt okay. Right, I've reached Hawes now. I can have a little break, and change clothes, went for a sleep, and have some food, and then back on, and then see where we get to from there.
So was Hawes the first time you'd slept then since starting?
Yeah. So I I think I set my alarm for, it was probably about 45, 50 minutes. I don't know if I properly slept. I think that first sleep was just a bit, just trying to get comfortable really, or just trying to switch off. But I definitely rested, and I think that that definitely helped. I felt much better. I felt good coming out of Hawes, but I had been really struggling with feeling quite tired coming into Hawes. And I think that must have been, I'm a bit off with time. I know it was dark. It was probably, I don't know, late afternoon, maybe early, yeah, probably late afternoon, I think,
So this
early
is on
evening.
Monday
And that
now.
was the Monday night, yeah. So having gone through from Sunday morning, that was the first sleep. But yeah, probably about 45 minutes, and then I headed out from there. And yeah, that that was quite a long section. I felt good coming out of Hawes, but you kind of get up to, it's quite boggy, up to Tan Hill, which was strange because I'd totally forgotten that Tan Hill was going to come up, and I could see these lights from a distance, and I thought I could make out like figures in a window, and I thought, well, what on earth are people doing in the middle of the night in the middle of a bog? And then I realized it was the pub, and it was brilliant. You could get hot soup, and there was a fire on, and so that was really lovely, and very much needed. I kind of felt like I needed a kind of food boost at that point as well. And then sort of stayed, I don't know how long, maybe half an hour, maybe not as long, and straight out into the bogs again. And that next section, oh my goodness, I just remember you have no idea where you're going. You just felt like you're just going through, picking a track, through bogs. And yeah, that felt like that was quite a long section there. But then you sort of get into fields, and you sort of came across some farms. And I mean, there's the kindest people out. The whole of those first few days, we saw so many, I think they call them trail angels, people who are just local and just love the spine race. And some people were out all night. There was a farmer and his wife in the back of a trailer in their field with drinks and biscuits and things, and they were literally there all night just to give whoever was coming past something to eat and drink. So I mean, there was this, these people popped up all over the place, and it was just lovely, really, really amazing support in the first couple of days. And yeah, you were kind of completely on your own, and then you would see this friendly face in a field just suddenly pop up. But that was really good, because that kind of gave you lots of little boosts to keep you going. And then where was it after the Hawes to Langdon Beck? Then yeah, that felt long. And I just remember there's this really lovely, what should be amazingly runnable section into Langdon Beck, which is your third checkpoint, along a river, completely flat, having gone through all these loads of horrendous bogs where you're picking your feet and you just can't get any kind of pace or sort of proper movement going. And then you got this lovely runnable section, and then I just felt like I couldn't move at all, and my arms are going and my legs are just not keeping up at all. And I was like, okay, I need to have a sleep when I get to Langdon Beck. And they were brilliant there. The volunteers were so lovely, and again, you just come in, and I just thought, right, I need a complete reset. And yeah, they just looked after you, food, and I ended up actually having a quick shower there, which I hadn't planned on doing, but I had a quick shower, and again, just clean clothes and a sleep, again, 45 minutes. And it just gave me a reset, and I just felt, I left Langdon Beck. I came in literally dragging my feet, and I came out, and I just felt like a new person. And I was, this was brilliant. It was late afternoon, and I felt like I could move, and it was a beautiful evening. There's this amazing section. You go round Cauldron's Snout, I think it's called, and up, you're sort of going over boulders, and then there's a really lovely scrambly section, and then you go up around High Neck, and it was it was beautiful. It was a sort of early evening, although I suppose actually it was probably only late afternoon, but the sun was setting, and that was just really fun. And then you're into, I really enjoyed this section, nice sort of running section down to Dufton, and a long downhill. And I was just like, I just feel great. I'm actually moving. I can run. And then from there, you're up to Crossfell. And I remember one of the volunteers saying to me at Dufton, he says, "You're actually one of the first people who've come through who actually looked like you're enjoying yourself." And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I am. This is great. I've just run down a hill. I've not been doing that much running. This actually feels quite good." And then Crossfell was the next part. But again, I just thought this was great. I was really enjoying this section, and they said they were warning you it was going to be cold and snowy, and it really was. It was like a proper microclimate, and I think because we'd had snow and ice, and it had been kind of cold and windy at parts. You sort of felt that you knew, but this was on a different level. This was proper kind of Scottish winter, I would say. It was really, really, really cold, proper wind. And it was that was fine. I was warm enough. That was fine. The actual bit I found was really tricky was the navigation, because you're essentially following a GPS track, and there was no real clear path on the ground. It was snow on bog essentially a lot of the time, so it was very hard to pick out any kind of trail, and there was no visibility. I mean, you could see like 1 or 2 feet in front of you. So you're following this kind of arbitrary line on your watch, which doesn't correlate with anything that you can see on the ground. So it's just really slow. It was very, very slow. And I had a handheld GPS, which I was really grateful I had brought with me, because that wasn't essential kit for this year's race, but I used it on Crossfell, and it was just so helpful because I just wasn't relying on my watch.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was much slower going over Crossfell than I'd thought it was going to be, but it was good. It was exciting, and it was cold, and it was but it was fun. And then we came over into Greg's hut, and they were honestly, I could see someone with their torches, and it was brilliant. Met John Bamber and the infamous Noodles, and they were just great. It was exactly what you needed. Some noodles in the middle of the night.
So what
And then,
day is this now?
sorry, so now where are we now? That must
It's
be
Wednesday night or Thursday night now.
Tuesday night. So Monday night would it have been? No, Tuesday night, I think. And then that's when I really started to struggle with sleep deprivation after that, I think.
So you've had 2 lots of 45-minute sleep.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do think coming up over Crossfell probably took a lot more out of me than, just with keeping warm and moving and just dealing with the wind. It took a lot more out of me. And I think, so then coming into the next morning, I was so tired. And I don't know if you've heard of, there's this lady called Annie, and she has her house in, I think it's Garrigill, but she's just opens her house to people every year, and it's a kind of unofficial checkpoint. And I wasn't going to go in because I thought, this is just going to, I just need to keep going. I need to get to Alston, and I'll have a sleep at Alston, but it was still quite a good way away. And she just sort of beckons you into her lovely warm house, and she makes you a cup of tea and gives you soup, and then she's got a fire on. I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to lie down on her living room floor in front of the fire. So I was like a dog. I just lay on the ground and had a sleep for about 20 minutes, and then I was like, okay, right, I can leave now. But I think it was about 4:30 in the morning, and I was so confused leaving her house. I just, part of the GPS wasn't working properly for me, and I couldn't find the bridge, and I got in a bit of a sort of sleep deprived state. Anyway, it was fine. It wasn't a big drama, but I did feel like I was walking around in circles quite a bit. And then got to Alston, and then had another reset there again, and just another brilliant team. And you're in a youth hostel there, so you can have a bed and have a proper lie down and stuff. So again, made use of that. But the 45 minutes weren't working so well at this point. So
No.
I still did the 45 minutes, but it just, I really sort of getting into territory. I really needed to probably have more. But I did my 45 minutes, and then off I went again. And then in this next section, so Alston to Bellingham, so that's quite long. In terms of the terrain, it's a lot of fields, and then you've got Hadrian's Wall section in there as well. And but it was fine. It was fine. The morning was the hardest bit, and I do think that morning was probably one of the hardest, just because I was getting more and more sleep deprived, and I think probably quite fuel deficient as well. And certainly that was probably a hindsight thing. And I just was feeling, I think my mood was dipping quite a bit as well. And that was one of the things Meryl had said to me as well. If you start to feel your mood dipping, just make sure you eat.
Yeah.
So I did. Eventually I was like, okay. And then I had, 2 or 3 flapjacks, and it's incredible that the difference just between having a bit more sugar and my mood would suddenly come up. I'd phone my mum or whatever, and I would be, okay, right, no, this is fine. This is all good. We're back on track here. But just at that point, I think when you're so you just need the basics, and you're not getting a sleep. So I think the fuel is that just becomes so much more important. But I got to Hadrian's Wall, and actually I really loved that section. That was I'd sort of had memories of it being a real slog when I did it last time, and I hadn't gone back to recce it again because I was a bit fearful of the slog. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the climbs, and it was probably late afternoon when I got there, and it just, that felt good. I felt really good going over Hadrian's Wall. And these boosts, I think, just, they did really, really help. And I don't think there were that many lows. Like, there were lows, but I did feel that if I could fix them by eating or by sitting down for 5 minutes and just shutting my eyes, there was nothing major. And it was all felt relatively within my control to kind of come out of the slumps. But I got to Bellingham. Oh my goodness. So that was overnight. That was when things started to get a bit funky in terms of the sleep deprivation. And I think I had probably what were hallucinations, but very, very kind of loose ones. I had a figure. So I had my head torch on, and it was a kind of figure at my right hand side, and it was just and I could kind of think, this is somebody. It's like somebody with a dry robe on, but they weren't scary. But it was just strange. This dry robe clad person, and I would turn around and just look, and it's like, okay, no, they're not there. I know they're not there. This is probably what they talk about, these hallucinations. But they were still there for a while, and I was like, I've got a friend, Caro, who goes wild swimming a lot, and I was like, I'm just going to call. This is Caro, and this is fine. Caro's just there. That's fine. We'll just go with this, and it won't freak me out. So I had this Caro just kind of trotting along next to me for a good way. And a lot of the lights were funky. You could pick out just reflectors and weird things, and they started to kind of dance. But again, nothing scary and nothing. I mean, I've heard stories of people seeing all sorts, but that was
all kinds of. Have you had hallucinations like that in other races?
No, I haven't. So it was my first experience. So now, and I've got quite an analytical mind as well. So I was a bit like, I know that's not there, and I think this is a hallucination, but I'm not convinced it is. So I'll just, but we'll just go with it. And then got to Bellingham, and that was the strangest experience, actually, because I knew I needed to be there, but I couldn't remember why. So I had this, it was a sort of deja vu as well, and I couldn't work out, because I had done this in a race before. Was I drawing on a memory of when I did it last time? But I just had this such clear, I know I need to be here, and my watch is telling me I need to be here, but I can't remember why I need to be here. And am I doing that thing where I have to join the places? Is that what I'm doing? Anyway, it kind of passed. I got into the checkpoint, and again, another reset, eat, sleep, and another 45 minutes. And then I was out again. And I do think at that point, my reset was not nearly as effective, but I was then on the home straight.
How far away from the finish are you at that point then?
So you're 40-ish miles, I think. And the next bit, though, was was actually much rougher ground than I remembered. I didn't go back and recce this, but there was a lot of bog, very very slow going again, before you get to this long forest track. And I had to have a sleep at the top of the forest track. I mean, I literally found a tree and just sat underneath it for like 10 minutes, set my timer on my watch, because it was still a long way I need to get to Burness, and I was just getting more and more tired. But it was fine. I just was moving so slowly, I felt at that point. And then got to Burness, where again another lots of lovely volunteers. I'd heard reports of people dropping out after that with really bad feet, so I was quite cautious of my feet. So I had to sort of stop and sort them out at Burness, and my feet had swollen quite a bit by this point. So I changed my shoes. I think it was at was it the third checkpoint? I think maybe Langdon Beck had changed my shoes, or Hawes, even before that, to half a size bigger. But my feet were expanding so much I couldn't wear liner socks anymore with my waterproof socks. And so I was really worried about my feet kind of blistering, but they were actually fine. But I did need to sort of stop and faff and check them out. And then I really probably could have done with a sleep before I went on to the Cheviots, but it was actually glorious. The sun had come out, and I was like, do you know, I just want to be up there. I just want to get this next section, and I can have a snooze in the sun if I feel like it when I get up there. So I never did, but it was just really lovely. And the boost from the sun was amazing, and actually just, absolutely energized me. And I felt good going up into the Cheviots. Really enjoyed, that felt like that was a home straight. I've done that quite a few times in recce, so I felt comfortable being there. I felt like I'm heading home now. I just need to just keep moving. And I'd had reports of who was around me, so I knew kind of what was happening. My husband just would phone me every now and again and be like, this is what's happened, this is what's happened in the race, because I was on my own, and I was on my own for the majority of the race. So you kind of forget that you're even racing. You're just moving. And it just is sort of bizarre, you're kind of you're racing almost virtually because you can't see anyone. But that was I mean, it's a long section of the Cheviots, but I do really love it. I think it was good. It felt good, and I just needed to get to the end at that point and try and not fall apart. So that was kind of my priority, was just
How was your body feeling at that point, apart from your feet, obviously? Was the rest of you okay?
So my feet were okay actually, but mostly my right thigh was getting pretty uncomfortable, but it was it's a funny one, because I think you have a sort of moving pain is what I thought, so you focus on one thing and it'll be sore, and then you just focus on something else for a while, and then you forget about that first pain. But that my quads were feeling a bit uncomfortable. But nothing terrible, and I just really tried to ignore it as much as possible. But generally, I felt okay. There was really nothing major going wrong. So I thought I just need to hang on to that.
So at what point did you realise you were kind of near the front?
So I was probably in third position from Hawes, I think. And so me and Sophie had been running together for quite a while. So I think we were kind of, third and fourth. And then from Hawes, when we split up, I think I was in third. Would that have been right? Yeah, third from there. And then, so the first two women, Anna and Johanna, had been, I think, running together or around each other, certainly for the majority of the time. And then when I was up on the Cheviots, and then that's when Johanna had dropped out. So of course I had my husband on the phone very excitedly. And I mean, but as I say, it was so strange because you're so far apart, I still had a fear factor that, Sophie was going to, speed up and catch me, which she could have done. But, I've seen it so many times in these long distance races, you just don't know what's going to happen. And even right up to the end, people were dropping out. So you just, it's not over till it's over,
No,
really.
So were your family watching from home, or were they kind of following
From
you up?
home, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then just dot watching, yeah,
yeah, like the rest of us.
like the
It's
rest, yeah.
exciting, isn't it? Yeah. So you're in the Cheviots then. Talk us through the finish then.
Yeah, so you've got the two huts, which are again they've kind of they feel quite well spaced apart, but they were great as well. Just nice to have a wee kind of reset there and have something to eat and just chat with people. And then that very last section, actually, from hut two over to the end, again, it was pretty icy underfoot. And so there's a lot of it is slabs along that way. So there's a lot of icy slabs. And then so that made moving quite slow again, and I was just really wary of just tripping and slipping and coming out the race. But and then you're downhill all the way down to Kirkgetton really. So nice long downhill and then a long kind of road section. And at that point, you're so close. It just feels so good. But at that point, I was so tired. I just remember there was a few single track bits which should have like normally been no problem, and my balance was just all over the place. You're relying so heavily on your poles at that point, just really feeling pretty wobbly, but yeah, you're so close there.
Yeah.
It's just a case of one
What
foot in
have you
front of
got
the
on your
other.
feet at that point? Have you got your spikes back on, or what?
I only on the hill, so I had it on where the icy slabs were, but I had them off for the last bit.
Yeah. And what trail shoes do you normally wear?
So I had Innovate Trail Talon Max. And I used that all the way through. I just went up half a size, but they were great. Like I had no, like the really good grip in the mud, which is what you kind of needed. And then they were really comfy as well.
Yeah. And the half size up, is that because you mentioned a sock liner and your waterproof socks? That's quite
Yeah,
a lot
and
of
just
sock.
there's a lot of sock. And then so my shoe, so I started with a shoe that was bigger than I'd probably have, and then I went up half a size just because my feet were swelling. And to be honest, I probably could have gone up a whole size. But my feet are so big anyway to start with, I couldn't bring myself to buy an even bigger pair of shoes.
So
I
what
could
state were your feet in at the finish then? Did they
Yeah,
take
they
a
looked.
while to calm down?
Yeah, and a lot of it was because of the water. To be honest,
Yeah.
they were pretty wrinkled. They weren't terrible. Didn't have any blisters. I have since lost one toenail, and there's definitely a few on their way out. But they were actually in pretty good nick, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so talk us through approaching that finish line then. What's
Yeah.
going through your mind?
Oh, it was so good. I just felt, it was such a big race to process. And I was just like, I just wanted to finish. And I was so just pleased just with the way it had gone. There was nothing had gone wrong really. And I was just really, it was just really, really delighted with the whole thing. And just really, I just thought it was a really great adventure. I think that's how I described it. It was a really positive experience. And my husband was there, so he'd driven down. And Nikki Spinks was there as well, which was lovely. And it was just really, it was low key, and it was middle of the night, but it was great. It was good. Just felt so good to finish.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Congratulations. Like, what an
Thank you.
amazing race. How did it live up to your expectations of how it would go? Did you go in with a specific plan?
No, not at all. I think my plan was really just to try and to move as well as I could, and I think just to try and look after myself as well as I could, and just I suppose a lot of it is problem solving on the move as well, and just thinking, around things like sleep. And I've heard so many people have gone in with fixed plans and then they've not been able to um, stick with that for whatever reason. So I didn't really have anything fixed, but it was, it was, I think, as I expected, better than I expected. And I got all the elements I wanted. You got the horrendous weather, and you had some good weather and had some beautiful scenery and all the lovely volunteers. So it was everything that I felt it should have been.
Yeah. Oh, what would you say your favourite moment of the entire experience was?
Ooh. Oh, noodles on Crossfell, I think that was so lovely. This just kind of, yeah, the bothy in the middle of the snow, and just that was a really, yeah, that was a really lovely memory, I think, from there. Just what you
Yeah,
needed.
yeah. So how long did it take you to feel human again afterwards? Like you must have slept a lot.
Yeah, I did. A week, maybe, I'd say, maybe a week. So definitely the first couple of nights. Um, I mean, I just slept pretty much the first 24 hours, I think. And then after that, I was sleeping at night, but also sleeping in the day. I needed naps. And yeah, it was probably about 5 or 6 days until I felt like didn't have this haze over me anymore, like it's sort of jet lag.
Yeah.
And then it was another week probably after that. You know, if you've had flu and you try to do something and you think you're fine, you try to do something and then you're just absolutely knackered. That's how it felt probably for about another week. And yeah, and then kind of back to normal after that. Still eating, I mean, yeah, everything, but feel normal.
Yeah, you must have had a huge calorie deficit, however hard you tried to fuel yourself during that. It must be impossible to eat enough. What does
Yeah,
your kind of fueling look like over a long event like that?
so I it was a real mixture of stuff. I think I fueled okay, but probably could have fueled better. I used gels. I used a lot of gels in the sort of first 24 hours anyway, and that was good. And then I just kept them. I did have them in my bag at all times, and I did find them actually really helpful just when you just needed that extra kick. And it wasn't necessarily about my rate, my exertion was so high, but it was just getting the sugar in when I needed it. And I used gels for the caffeine as well, so I kind of had them just spread out all the time. And then others, so I had nuts, crisps, flapjacks, I think were the absolute winner. Just lots of bars of kind of high calorie flapjack. Um, some like the first couple of days I had things that I'd made from home, like some wraps or hot cross buns or with jam. But as the days went on, they just go stale. So it was all pretty much just packaged stuff. And I would take a few freeze dried meals as well if there was going to be a checkpoint with hot water that I could take it away from. Um, Porridge in a bag worked really well, and some other freeze dried meals which didn't work so well. But you learn. But I scavenged. I felt like I was just scavenging food the whole way around. There were so many people handing out food, and I just took it from everybody. So I just tried to eat as much as
So
possible.
do you eat to a kind of a timed plan, or do you tune into to what your body needs?
I think I had a timer on my watch for every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful, probably for the first 24 hours. And then after that, I just started to ignore it. And I probably should have listened to it more. But it felt like every 30 minutes came around so quickly. And then, it was really hard to kind of want to keep eating so often as well. But you probably needed it, but it was just trying to kind of override that the feeling that you didn't want to do it and just do it anyway. But yeah, mostly to feel, I would say, in the later stages.
Yeah. And how does your body cope with eating kind of on the move like that over a prolonged period of time? Because I know, I mean, I've never done a race longer than 24 hours, but I know even in the latter half of that, I was struggling to eat.
Yeah.
How do you train your body to keep taking on fuel like that?
I think I think just by I don't know what the sort of the best answer is. I mean I did okay. I didn't My stomach didn't cause me any issues. And I think just by training, by eating on the move. So
Yeah.
any long runs I would do, I would just try and eat any runs, certainly the last couple of months, anything I did outside, I would be eating whilst I went. And I think just training your gut that way. And certainly because the exertion is so low, I mean, I'm quite happy to eat just as I'm moving. If I was running more, I would probably struggle a bit more, and I'd probably be relying more on gels or carb drinks, or which I used as well. Actually, I had carb mix in my drinks. But yeah, I didn't really moving at that pace was fine.
Yeah. Okay. Which brand carb drink do you use? I know our listeners will want to know.
Oh yeah. So I use Tailwind and Active Root, and I sort of went between the two of them just to kind of keep the flavors fresh.
Yeah, and that works well for you
Yeah,
generally. Yeah.
yeah,
I like the idea that you said you use kind of gels for a caffeine kick. I've not heard that before, but that's actually, yeah, it's a really simple, easy way of getting caffeine in,
yeah.
isn't it, if you need
I
it?
found it. I found it to be sort of probably the most transportable way that I could think of, and I like the Protein Rebel caffeine ones because they're. I find them just really tasty, and they're not so strong as some of the other ones. Um, so I could take them, relatively regularly without feeling sick or headachy or anything. So yeah, no, and they I could just take them all the time. I think they worked fine. I mean, certainly towards the end, the caffeine was losing its function. I needed to sleep, but I still kept them going anyway.
Yeah. So with your sleep strategy, because you mentioned you were setting your timer for 45 minutes,
Yeah.
was that a kind of what was the thinking behind that 45 minutes?
Um, Based just on the first sleep I had was about 45 minutes, and I felt it was kind of I felt relatively refreshed after
Yeah.
that. And certainly the last couple long races I've done, it seemed to be 45 minutes seemed to be a kind of I would naturally wake up after that point and feel okay. And actually going into the race, I in my head I thought I would either do a 30-minute sleep or an hour and a half sleep. So I completely went off track. Um, yeah, and I don't know. I do feel that perhaps if one of my sleeps maybe was slightly longer, I could maybe have um I don't know, maybe I could have gained a bit more time back just from it just being kind of sleep deprived and maybe needing to have trail naps as much because I did have the odd one. So, but it's hard to know, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But yeah, you never really know.
No, no.
Is there anything else that didn't especially go to plan that you would change if you could do it again?
Um, so I do. I think the sleep and the fueling. I think they're so fundamental. I think they would be the things I would probably. And I have actually got a place on next year's spine race. I did enter yesterday, so I have to think about this again. But yeah, so sleep and fueling, and those are the two I think that make obviously your kit because people were dropping out because they were getting cold. But my kit felt, there was nothing in my kit that didn't work. I was really happy with that side of things. But yeah, the basic stuff, fueling and sleep, I think are absolutely where it's at for me. And I need to probably get a better game plan together. And then just all the other stuff as well, the sort of strength and training really,
Yeah.
being in the best state you can be.
Yeah. And you've set yourself a really high benchmark, haven't you? Going in next time.
Well, I know, but I think it's a time thing. I think because I had to think about, did I want to do this? And actually, at the time, um, I remember saying at the end, well, I'm not going to do that again. So that's. And then a week later, there was just part of my brain just kind of went, oh, but I think you could do it better. There's things that you've learned, and I mean, I might not be able to, who knows? But I just think, oh, maybe if I did fuel better or I worked out my sleep, then maybe I could move better at other times. And it's just, yeah. Anyway, I find myself on the, you know, fingers on the buzzer yesterday when the applications opened. So I've got a place. So I have a year.
I was going to ask what's next, but
That's far enough away. I don't need to think about it just yet. But
yeah. Have you got anything else planned for this year?
yeah, I've got Lakeland 100, which I'm quite excited about. I think I've never run a proper 100 miler. I say a proper one. I think I'm actually going to have to run this one. So that's a big challenge for me. I feel the fear factor doing something like that because that feels very out with my comfort zone. So I'll look forward to that as well, and different focus for training. And then I've got some of the Scottish hill running ones I want to do because they're good fun, just dotted around over the year. But yeah, those are the big ones,
Yeah.
definitely.
So how often are you racing then?
Um, so I think So the last few years I've had one probably big race in the year, and then I try and just do local races, just when they fit in or I feel like doing it.
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah, for fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh no, that's great. Yeah. And I bet your children are really proud of you and your husband.
Yeah, they are. They are. Yeah, my kids are funny about it. They just sort of roll their eyes a little bit, and but they do love it as well, and they love telling their teachers about what mum's doing, and yeah, no, they're very supportive.
I know it's lovely for them to see their mum out doing stuff like that. Like that's amazing. You need good role models, and yeah,
Yeah,
what a
yeah,
role model you
absolutely.
are. It's
Oh,
fantastic.
thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Fiona, for your time today. It's been
You're so
fascinating
welcome.
hearing all
Yeah.
about the spine. I'm not sure you've completely tempted me to ever want to do it, but I think you're a different class of athlete. Certainly.
No, not at all. And I think, yeah, it's a challenge, and I think I would so encourage people to do that because it is amazing what your body can do, and I do think a lot of it is your headspace and your mindset. It's not about being the most accomplished athlete at all. I think it's just enjoying it and getting out there and giving it a shot.
Yeah, and it's clear that you absolutely love it, and that's your kind of environment.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
that helps a lot, doesn't it? Yeah. Oh, well,
definitely.
thank you so much. We hope that everybody out there listening to the conversation today has really enjoyed that. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast, leave us a review, and share it with somebody else who loves endurance running. And thank you, as always, for listening. We'll see you next time on the UK Run Chat podcast.